Morning. I am continuing my reading from the book of 2 Kings from the Old Testament of the Holy Bible, chapter 4 onwards. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy husband is dead, and thou knowest thy servant did fear the Lord. The creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy house? And the handmaid has not anything in the house save a pot of oil, she said. Then he said, Go, borrow the vessels abroad. Of all thy neighbors, empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. And so she went up to him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, and who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet another vessel. And he said unto her, There is not another vessel more. And the oil stayed. And she came and told the man of God. And he said, Go sell the oil, pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. And it fell on the day that Elisha passed to Shunammite, there was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on the day that he came thither, that he returned to his chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call the Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for you? Wouldest thou be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily she has no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in at the door. And he said, About this season, according to the time of thy time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, Nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thy handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers, and he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to the lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to the mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then he died. And she called out to her husband and said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, It shall be well. And then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, Drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that she said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is a Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with thy child? And she answered and said, It is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and the Lord has hid it from me, and has not told me. Then she said, Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up thy loins, take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any man salute thee, answer him not again, and lay aside my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy Lord liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, The child is not awakened. And when Elisha was come to the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon the bed. He went in therefore, shut the door upon the door, and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up and lay upon the child, put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, hands upon his hands, stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked into the house to and fro, went up, stretched upon him, and the child sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. And he called unto Gehazi and said, Call the Shunammite. And so he called her. And when she was come in unto him, he said, Take up thy son. And then she went in and fell at his feet, bowed herself to the ground, and took up the son and went out. And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servant, Set on a great pot, and seat pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds, his lap full, and came unto them, and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew no. And they poured out for the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating of the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is dearth in the pot. And they could not eat thereof. And he said, Then bring meat. And he cast it into the pot, and said, Pour out for the people that they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot. And there came a man from Baal Shalisha, and brought the man of God bread of fresh food, 20 loaves of barley, full ears of corn in the husk thereof. And he said, Give unto the people that they may eat. And his servitor said, Why should I said this before 100 men? He said again, Give the people they may eat. For thus says the Lord thy God, They shall eat and shall leave thereof. So he set it before them, and they did eat, and left thereof, according to the word of the Lord. Chapter 5. Now Naaman, the captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and they brought out a captive out of the land of Israel, a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told the Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes, and said, Am I God to kill and to make alive? That this man did send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy. Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel with me. And it was so, when Elisha the man of God had heard the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come unto me now, and he shall know there is a prophet in Israel. And so Naaman came with the horses and his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, and saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and the flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. And Naaman was very wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of the Lord his God, strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away and went in a rage. And his servants came near and spake unto him, and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, would thou not do it? How much rather then, when he said unto thee, Wash and be clean? Then went he down, dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore, I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. And he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon thy sin in this servant in this thing. And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. And Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master has spared Naaman the Syrian. I am not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman. And when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from a chariot to meet him. And he said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master has sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me the Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver, 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged them and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, 2 changes of garments, laid them upon the 2 servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand, bestowed them in the house, and let the men go, and they departed. And he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. And he said unto them, Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it time to receive money, or to receive garments, and olive yards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maid servants? The leprosy thereof, therefore, of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from the presence, as a leper, as white as snow. Chapter 6. And the sons of the prophets said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take tents, every man a beam, and let us make us a place there, where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. And so he went with them. And when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. And as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, Alas, master, for it is borrowed. And the man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place. And he cut down a stick, cast it thither, and the iron did swim. Therefore said he, Take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. And the king of Syria warred against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, Beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to a place off, and saved himself there, not once, not twice. And the heart of the king of Syria was so troubled for this thing. And he called his servants, and said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, None, my lord of God, but Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. When the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, a host compassed the city, both with the horses and chariots. And the servant said unto him, Elisha, my master, what shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, and he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord, and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, This is not the way, neither is the city. Follow me, and I will bring you the man whom you seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come into Samaria, that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, My father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he answered, Thou shalt not smite them. Wouldst thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword? And with thy bow set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to the master. And he prepared great provision for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to the master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. And it came to pass after that, Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host, and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it, until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the 4th part of a cab of a dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon a wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O my king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, when shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the winepress? And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said to her the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she has hid her son. It came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, he rent his clothes, and he passed by the wall upon the wall. And the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth upon his flesh. And he said, God do so, and much more also to me, if the head of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, shall stand on him this day. But Elisha sat in his house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from before him. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, See ye how the son of a murderer has sent to take away my head. Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door, and hold him fast to the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? And while he yet talked with them, behold, the messenger came down unto him, and he said, Behold, this evil is of the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer? Chapter 7. Then Elisha said, Hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and in the gate of Samaria. Then a Lord on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God and said, Behold, if the Lord would make the windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And there were 4 leprous men entering in the gate, and they said to one another, Why sit we here till we die? If we say we shall enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. If they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the host of Syrians to hear a noise of chariots, and a noise of the horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said to one another, Lo, the king of Israel has hired us against the king of the Hittites, and the king of the Egyptians to come upon us. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, left their tents, their horses, their asses, even as the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent, did eat and drink, carried silver, gold, raiment, and went and hid it. Came again, entered into another tent, carried tents also, and went and hid it. Then they said to one another, We do not know well. This is a day of good tidings. We hold our peace. If we tarry till morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, we must go and tell the king's household. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told them, saying, We come to the camp of the Syrians. And behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied, and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night, and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we are hungry, therefore they are gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out of the city, we shall cast them alive and get out into the city. And one of the servants answered and said, Let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are all as multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. They therefore took 2 chariot horses. And the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, Go and see. And they went after them unto Jordan. And lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels, which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. And the king appointed the Lord on whose hand he leaned to have charge of the gate. And the people trod upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God had said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, And a measure of fine flour for a shekel shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And the Lord answered the man of God and said, Now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell out unto him, for the people trod upon him in the gate, and he died.